Keeping Lance Stroll in F1 is worse than you think. There's one single thing friends and foes in the F1 community agree on, and that is that Lance Stroll shouldn't have a seat in F1 anymore. Sure, he did enough to prove that he's a racer. He did manage to get a super license, and there's definitely some talent there. However, keeping him on at Aston Martin is even worse than you thought, and in the next few minutes I'll tell you exactly why. I'm Wimbo, here's 3 seconds to leave a like. Nepotism. Let's address the elephant in the room here. Oh, hello. Lance Stroll wouldn't be in Formula 1 if it wasn't for his father pretty much paying for him to have a seat. Now, a driver paying for a seat isn't that strange in the sport. So there's no need to be too harsh about that part of Stroll's presence in the sport. What is pretty tragic about Lance taking up one of only 20 seats is that another more talented driver doesn't. Felipe Drugovich might be just as good as Lance, and he is forced to wait on the sidelines. How different would Checo Perez's career look now if he was teamed up with Vettel in 2021 instead of being replaced by him? If Vettel still had retired, Checo would be in a Spanish-speaking duo in a pretty competitive car with the legendary Fernando Alonso. So the first reason why I want Lance Stroll to quit is to give a better candidate a chance. It's no big deal. Aston Martin. I know the Aston Martin cognizant F1 team, try saying that 10 times fast, is owned by Lawrence Stroll, Lance's father, who is a billionaire. So we don't have to worry that the team will go bankrupt anytime soon. However, within the regulations of the sport and just for the outlook of the whole team, it's nicer to be P4 in the standings than P5, especially seeing where they were a few months ago. This is made impossible by the lack of points Stroll Jr. is scoring. Even in races where Fernando Alonso is scoring podiums, Lance Stroll is out of the points or barely in them. At the start of the season, I wanted to believe in all the praise team principal Mike Crack and teammate Alonso were giving him. I'm a little naive that way. It would be an awesome narrative if Lance would all of a sudden be out there beating the two-time world champion Alonso and getting regular podiums to prove all the haters wrong. Now the harsh reality is there. He's not good enough for Formula 1. He shouldn't be there anymore, and sometimes I get the feeling that he actually wouldn't mind if he wasn't anymore. Before it's too late, before I tell you about my biggest concern with Lance Stroll being in F1, I want to ask you to subscribe if you haven't done already. I'm slowly getting closer to the 1k subscriber number, the number that will allow me into the partner program. I make 2 to 3 of these kinds of videos weekly and a podcast monthly. My community is small but loyal, and that means I can answer every comment and I'm open to suggestions. Thanks a million. My biggest concern with Lance Stroll still being on track is safety. Not just for the young man himself, but also for the rest of the grid. He has been involved in some major shunts. In his debut season alone, there were crashes in the pre-season and in China and Bahrain. Obviously, that's something that happens to rookies, and he did manage a front row start in Italy. As the years went by, Lance Stroll kept consistently losing to his teammates, but was always guaranteed a seat. Every season he had a few major crashes too. One that stands out for me is the kamikaze action in Hungary 2021. What Valtteri Bottas did was pretty bad. He had a bad start, stepped on the brake too late and sent Norris flying into Verstappen while hitting Perez himself. Stroll topped it all off by not braking at all, trying to avoid a Ferrari by going over the wet grass and still hitting the Ferrari of Charles Leclerc, who then slid into the McLaren of Ricciardo. There was one situation where Vettel rejoined the track unsafely, which Stroll complained about,
came back on the circuit like an idiot,
to only go and do it himself 20 seconds later to Pierre Gasly. Then there were numerous accidents where all the professionals agreed on that he lacked awareness and he never used his mirrors. This season he had 2 crashes in qualifying. One because he was on mediums in the wet at the Belgium Grand Prix, so that can be forgiven. But the huge full frontal crash in Singapore looked very scary. It was so bad that he couldn't race the next day. I personally think that all those accidents where he walked away were warnings. I'm honestly afraid that if he keeps going the way he is now, being absent-minded and totally not with the program, he could hurt himself or another driver. The interviews he gives tell me he doesn't actually want to be there. When he was asked about his tennis career, a rumor that went around not so long ago, he just smiled his meager smile and denied it a little. Compare that with the likes of Russell, Norris and especially Tsunoda, and the fire in their eyes. You can tell they really want to compete, and Lance looks like he'd rather be somewhere else. This is what makes having Lance Stroll on the grid a liability. A driver with the security of a seat, pushed by his demanding father. He has some skill, but it's hidden away too deep for someone who isn't focused, and it's waiting on an accident to happen. I say out with Lance before it's too late. What's your opinion on it? Leave a comment. Take care now. Doei doei.